Hey, it's Lemon. Welcome to the Backlogs. Hope you're doing well. I myself seem to be in a bit of a predicament, but enough about me. Tell me about you. Things good? You eating right? Sorry, 1 second. That's better. Almost died there. Welcome back to Once Human, the MMO Lovecraft survival crafting game that occasionally haunts my dreams. Because once you see a bus with legs, you kinda can't go back. That said, I've been playing this game for a while now, and while it's been quite the ride, I think today will be my last day playing it. I've just done pretty much everything I can think of as far as challenge run goes, from beating the game with knives to building the Firebomb Academy itself in-game. But I've got one last idea up my sleeves, and I think you'll like this one, because today we're gonna make the game beat itself. It's time to find out. Can you beat Once Human as a pacifist? Before I get too far in, a quick thank you to Once Human for sponsoring today's video. It's been fun breaking your game over and over again, and hopefully after today, it'll get that much needed rest it needs from me. If you want to play the game for yourself, use my link in the description or pinned comment down below to download it. It's free to play, isn't pay to win, and just launched some new content that we're going to explore today.
The Endless Dream, and the Manibus Scenario's new visional season, Aberrant Progeny.
And on that note, let's get started. When you play Once Human, the server you pick determines which scenario you'll be playing. Think of these as campaigns in a D&D game. The core rules of the game are the same, but each scenario has a few changes that keeps things fresh. And the Endless Dream is no different. Designed for players looking for a difficult challenge, this scenario is as hard as it gets. As you can see here, the map is covered in new purple symbols. These are the Eternal Dreamers. These dreamers are buffed up by Deep Dreamers, which are in turn buffed up by Light Dreamers. Or put another way, the big bad bosses are buffed by the mini bosses around them, which are in turn buffed by the elite enemies around them. But Lemon, you say to your computer screen despite the fact that I can't hear you, that's a lot of bosses. How the heck are you supposed to do all that by yourself? Well, you're not. This scenario leans heavily into the multiplayer aspect of the game, and expects you to join up with other players to tackle all of the enemies and eventually bring down the Eternal Dreamers of the realm. But now, the true question. This all sounds difficult, but how hard is it really? And how the heck are we going to do it as a pacifist? All in due time, young grasshopper. All in due time. First things first, I need to put on the brand armor. And with that issue now solved, we fly ourselves anywhere that isn't inside a dream zone and plummet to the earth like the metal comet that we are. Once grounded, we can set up a starter base with a few simple button presses, chop down some trees with a rock, break down some rocks with a rock, then do a little bit of exploring until I can find some copper ore, also gathered with a rock. In case it wasn't obvious at this point, everything we're doing is pretty much exactly what you would be doing on a normal run. There's only two differences. The first is that I'm not fighting any enemies we bump into, which can be a bit of a problem after a while considering how many enemies there are around the resource zones. And the second is that the resource zones are even harder to navigate these days, since a majority of them are inside dream zones. Essentially, every dreamer, large or small, creates a temporal field of sorts, almost like the Shimmer from Annihilation, if you've seen that movie. The Shimmer is more than happy to let you in, but be warned. Entering a dream zone is not a decision to be taken lightly. There's the aforementioned swarms of enemies inside, which are always a bad time, the Dreamer event bar, which can be anything from lightning strikes to mortar fire to resource boons, depending on the dreamer inside the zone, and this fun little timer down here. This is your corrosion timer. Spend too long in a dream zone, and you die. Instantly. So that's fun.
But good news!
You can pick the class that makes being a pacifist a whole lot easier. Because wouldn't you know it, there's a class system in Once Human now. And with Beastmaster as our profession of choice, we now get to choose which animal companion we want to start with. Pongo the pig, who can forage and find rare items, Misha the bear, who is essentially a tank and meat shield, or Shiro the wolf, which acts as a DPS and can also evolve as he gains experience from battle. Welcome to the team, Shiro. God, I hope you're actually good at your job. While Shiro gets more familiar with this wall here, let's talk about how the pets in this game work. Each pet needs food, water, and shelter. Provide these three things, and the pet will become tame. Tame pets will produce supplies for you, and you can even micromanage your pets by breeding certain genetic traits together if you want to. For our purposes though, we just need Shiro here to be a fighting machine, and it looks like he's got the perfect feat for that. Alpha Wolf Potential. Right now, he's an extra 25% more damage and 15% more HP, but if he kills 50 strong enemies or wolves, he can actually increase his attack by 50%, HP by 30%, his size by 30%, and will gain additional damage if I can add a few more wolves to my roster. Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? Shiro is also more than happy to eliminate any enemies that wander too close to us, which means my days of getting pinned inside a house by gaggles of enemies are hopefully over. The only thing I don't like is how you desummon him. He's fine, I swear. But gripes or no, you can't argue with the results. He may be a bit clunky at times, but he's a good dog. And with Shiro's help, we were able to explore a few settlements, which in turn let me find the Xeno Purifier. This deviation is essentially a summonable samurai, which spawns next to you and can attack enemies for a limited time before it has to recharge. It's not quite as strong as Shiro, but adding more DPS to the party is never a bad thing. With the help of my ragtag team, I explore harder and harder settlements, eventually finding enough scraps to get myself some tier 2 armor, and eventually I find enough materials to make Shiro some dentures, which takes his attack from 888 to a whopping 1,512, doubling our damage, one tooth at a time. With Shiro's attack power on the rise, I decided it was time to put him to the test and went after one of the earliest mini-bosses in the game, the Glutton. And while Shiro is definitely doing some damage, we can already see some cracks in my strategy forming, because unlike a human player who knows to attack the glowing weak points on an enemy, Shiro is just biting at ankles and hoping for the best, which means it's time for step 2 of my step plan. Ladies and gentlemen, our new best friends, the automatic turrets. Normally reserved for base defense, the Endless Dream scenario actually has a rule that says if you have the materials, you can build inside of dream zones as well, which means not only can you build tiny bases to help you fight against the dreamers, but you can also do something stupid like, setting up a line of automatic turrets before you initiate the boss fight. Now, there are some limitations to this. You're only allowed to have 6 turrets at a time, and you can only have 3 energy producing systems as well. So, here's how the Light Dreamer fights work. When you activate the fight, you now have 1.5 minutes to prepare before the boss arrives. You'll also find that 2 portals have spawned nearby. These portals will spawn enemies, some of which attack you, and others which will try to heal the Dreamer. And while we could try to set things up so that my team can attack these enemies, why do that when we can simply create a wall around the portals and take the enemies out of the fight completely? And with the portals boarded up, the Dreamer appears. Light Dreamers, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective, are all mechanically the same. They can grow arms that can either melee attack or throw projectiles, and they can blow bubbles which act as shields against damage. Overall, not a whole lot to say. My portal blockade strategy is working incredibly well, with only a few stragglers making it over the walls, and while the damage output of my team isn't exactly mind-blowing, I think it's safe to say that we've got this fight in the bag. The only thing we'll ever need to worry about is time. When you wake up a Dreamer, you have roughly 3.5 minutes to take it down. Oh, and don't forget about the 15-minute timer of being in a dream zone. The last thing you want to do is instantly die in the middle of a boss fight. But after killing all the Light Dreamers around, it was finally time to give the Deep Dreamer a try. Let's see what we're in for here. Okay, lots of differences here. The first obvious difference is that we have 11 minutes to fight this boss rather than 3.5. The second is that the boss doesn't appear until we complete several objectives. The first objective we're given is to kill multiple enemies that are spawning around the arena. A simple enough task that the turrets are more than capable of completing without any sort of micromanaging. But then we get the second task, kill 3 Dreamscape Guardians. These Guardians are amped up versions of elite enemies you'd normally find around the map, and seem to have some sort of force field around them. And if my turrets or dog aren't inside the field, then they aren't doing any damage. Obviously this is problematic, because it means I now have to play keep away around my turrets, hoping all the while that their AI will recognize the greater threat and attack the bigger monster, which they often do not. Thankfully, Shiro is a melee fighter and has to get inside the bubble anyway to do damage, so we've got that going for us at least. But when the second Guardian turns out to be a flying ranged attack monster, well, I think you see the problem here. And even if we do kill a Guardian, it just spawns objective number 3, a Dreamscape Dendron. These have the same problem as the Guardians, with the added bonus that they always spawn high off the ground and have an extremely tight shield. And no, you can't just slap a turret inside their bubble. I tried. This is going to take some outside the box thinking. There's definitely no way to place a turret inside the bubble, and despite being able to tell my samurai to only attack the Dendrons, his AI simply can't handle the task and refuses to warp inside the bubble when it attacks. I tried placing a flamethrower trap inside the bubble, which didn't work due to the fact that you can't place them underneath enemies, and despite the fact that I was able to get a turret's barrel inside the bubble with some precarious platform placement, say that 3 times fast without peeking your mic, the game must not actually spawn the turret projectiles from the tip of the barrel, which is endlessly frustrating. So, with my dog, samurai, and auto turrets unable to complete the task at hand, I think it's time for some new toys. Say hello to my Amazon delivery drone. What does it deliver? Piping hot lead, direct to your vital organs. Now, is the damage good? Sorta. It kinda depends on your stats. According to the skill tree, the drone does 78 damage plus 100% of your psi intensity, which is determined by your armor. So the better your armor, the better your drone damage. But why stop there when we can add even more nonsense to the team? Say hello to the portable machine gun towers. Doing a whopping 259 plus 100% psi intensity damage per round fired, these bad boys also have the added benefit of having a maximum quantity of 3, not just 1. They also require no energy source, and can easily be placed by just hucking them wherever you see fit. And though they be small, they also be mighty. I think the melting health bar speaks for itself. In fact, the only real downside to the portable turrets is their material cost. Unlike the slightly less portable turrets we've been using thus far, we don't get the material cost back at the end of the fight, which means we're going to have to do a lot of material grinding if we're going to use them in every battle.
But thankfully, there's a way to lower that pain, because Once Human introduced custom servers. For a minimal fee per month, you can create your own server and change the rules as you see fit. You can change pretty much every aspect of the game. You can remove material costs so that Once Human becomes a building simulator, make enemies 10 times harder so that you have to fight for every minute of your survival, or just tweak the aspects of the game you'd rather didn't exist. For today's video, I used a custom server to eliminate all the grinding, and made it so that I find 10 times the loot and materials. Because if you've proven that you can get a material once, then you've proven you can get it 10 more times. And as someone who has very limited game time, the less time I waste grinding out materials, the better.
And with the dendrons spawned, now we just need to create some stairs to reach them and throw in a... Huh, that was weird. Well, anyway, just take aim and throw in a... Okay, new plan. Jump into the bubble, throw down a turret. There, fucking finally. And with the dendrons taken care of, we can... Oh, come on! Are you serious? The dendrons are immune to bullets? Why? In a fit of frustration, I did hop over to the dendron and stab it repeatedly with a starting knife, just to confirm that my game wasn't glitching out and making it impossible. And yeah, melee damage works. Which is actually more upsetting, because that means I have no way to beat the Deep Dreamers. In the hope that I had maybe just gotten a bad list of boss debuffs or something like that, I went through the trouble of clearing out the Light Dreamers around another Deep Dreamer, and even made several improvements to my squadron. I grabbed the skill tree node that improves my drones to even better damage, which had dramatic results, and I even researched the best version of the turrets, which means we've got about as much damage going down range as possible. But all that doesn't mean diddly when the game decides that the Deep Dreamer is going to spawn in water! Why have you done this? I want answers. Look at this, I've got a Dream Guardian who's stuck underwater. There's nothing I can do to hurt him, and he refuses to come onto dry land. Even if I was playing normally, this would be impossible. Bullets don't penetrate water, and you can't use melee attacks while swimming, which means there's literally no way to do any damage to this guy. And this is after I spent hours grinding up materials and clearing Light Dreamers. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined. Once Human devs, if you're listening, please create some limiters on where Dreamers can spawn. Just remove cliffs and water sources from spawning zones, that's all I'm asking. Well, in case it wasn't obvious, I think the answer is clear. No, you cannot beat the endless dream scenario of Once Human as a pacifist.
But hey, there's still the Manibus scenario to try. I wonder what's new in this particular scenario. Oh good, they added more Lovecraftian Nightmare to my Lovecraftian Nightmare game. Majestic. In this scenario, we've got several new things going on. First off, there's new enemies for us to destroy. Throughout the map, you'll find these human enemies with monster heads. Aberrations to the normal monsters. Aberrant progeny, if you will. Oh hey, he said the name, wow. Killing these aberrant progeny will guarantee the drop of a deviant sprout. What's it do? Not much. Just transforms your character Majora's Mask style, complete with painful looking transformation. There are 12 sprouts in all, with each one doing something different based on which enemy head type you apply. Some of them give you a chance to petrify enemies around you, some keep you from getting grabbed and give you defense bonuses, some automatically process your resources, and still others just turn you invisible. Guess which one is the most useful to me right now? Outside of the aberrant progeny though, there's a few other enemy types that have been added to the game. We've got the hoarders, which are what you get when you combine a shopping cart and a mannequin, thanks I hate it, but the trick with them is that if you don't actively kill them, they'll lead you to their nest, which is jammed full of hoarded goodies. Up next is the sonivore. Essentially a gelatinous ooze, it likes to capture its target inside its body, which means you'll need a team of some kind to help get you out. Thankfully, for anyone playing solo, you will be given a button prompt to escape. But yeah, best tackled with friends. And lastly, we have the Devourer. Yeah, we'll talk about him in a bit. Don't you worry. With this scenario, the biggest thing you'll want to focus on is the vision zones, which are indicated by these purple faces on the map. There are 3 types: Mirage, Virtual, and Wild. When you enter one of these zones, you'll notice that there's suddenly a list of debuffs on top of your screen. It seems like they're picked from a list at random, so it's probably best to just enter the area as prepared as possible. Inside these zones, the corruption is extremely toxic. Like, endgame gear won't save you levels of toxic. In fact, the only way to prevent yourself from slowly dying to sanity loss is to do the one thing you'd think would do the most damage to your sanity. Equip a sprout. Congratulations to all the people who guessed that the invisibility sprout would be the most useful to me. You win one full clap. So, we've got our sprouts, and we've got our pacifist build. But what's the target? Simple, really. It's clearing bosses that are hiding inside the vision zones. Yep, the bosses are out and about in the overworld and need putting back in their cages. So, good news, bad news. The good news is that I've seen these bosses before, so I have some idea of what to expect. The bad news is that they all have some new moves, which means I don't know what to expect. Combine that with the zone debuffs and the fact that these bosses have way more health than usual, and you've got a bad time for a pacifist build. Hooray! But my turrets and I are nothing if not persistent, and despite these fights taking upwards of 10 minutes each, I can at the very least say they're doable. Some of the targets are just elite enemies buffed to hell and back, so don't expect to just fight all the base game bosses. And I'm sure with a proper build, they're not all that bad. But because I'm playing as a pacifist, I have to think outside the box and use the terrain to my advantage. Because while I don't tend to take damage, my turrets absolutely can. And they're not cheap, so the less times the targets can break them, the better. 20 minutes later, and that's another zone cleared. It may not be efficient, but there is a certain satisfaction to watching the game beat itself to death. Fun fact, each zone has its own rules, which might explain why I've been having such a hard time so far. The first zone we fought in was a wild zone, which is designed specifically to make it easier for players to grow mutated plants and animals. The second boss I fought was in a mirage zone, which makes it so that all enemies take less damage when attacked from the front, which explains the grueling 20+ minutes it took to take that purple behemoth down. This last area, a virtual zone, is even weirder. Enemies are either corporeal or ethereal. Enemies with physical bodies take reduced elemental damage, while enemies that are ethereal take reduced physical damage, which is well represented by Shiro's damage here. Nearly 8,000 damage to a physical soldier, but only 3,500 to a ghostly enemy. Sure glad that all my methods of damage are physical. I'm sure that won't suck for me at all. Balls, the boss is a ghost. I won't lie to you, this was easily the most annoying fight I've had with this build. We might as well be tickling the Siren's health bar, Shiro is stuck up on a roof somehow, and despite me big braining the fight and throwing my turrets up on a roof where the Siren can't stomp on them, he has an attack that shoots homing ghost balls at all of my summons, and every time he does, it kills all of my turrets. No, it's fine, those didn't cost me 10 minutes of my life each, I don't care. Eventually, I get lucky and confuse the Siren's AI into only doing his ranged stomp attack, which is easily dodgeable and means my turrets can go on pestering him without interruption. But man oh man was this annoying. Call me crazy, but I'm starting to think that you're not supposed to play the game without attacking. Nah, that can't be right. Please excuse my moment of doubt. It's been a long year. What do you mean it's only January? Now then, let's talk about our good friend the Devourer. Basically what I would consider the big bad boss of this content, at least so far. This train is an absolute terror for my build. Not only does this thing hit like an actual train, Jesus wept, what was that? But we have the added problem of having to hide my turrets out of range of its wheels, which is doable, but certainly slows down my DPS. Oh, and Shiro doesn't know what to do with himself. So that's just several thousands of damage that we're just not going to get. At least the train is polite about it. This fight is just all around bad for my build. My summons can handle all of the adds it drops off without any issues, but even when my turrets are directly in front of it while it's revealing its weak spot, they just don't have enough oomph to get anywhere. Because you might have noticed by now, but the Devourer has a shield of some kind that we have to break through before its actual health bar can be lowered. And if you don't do enough damage fast enough... Yep, it's good, it's good. Yeah, something tells me this one ain't happening. Could be the fact that I can't do damage, could be the fact that I just got run over by a speeding train. The only other thing we can attempt in this scenario is the Manibus, a world raid boss that blots out the sky. But despite my best efforts to get up close and personal, my summons just weren't interested in engaging. It's okay, little buddy. I have performance anxiety too. Man, that's 2 scenarios tried and 2 scenarios failed. Being a pacifist is hard. The dreamers in that stupid glowworm train may have me beat, but maybe there's still several other bosses in the game we can brutally demolish. Starting with the Ravenous Hunter. Because we're no longer fighting in the dream zones, we can't build bases or defense turrets anymore, but in case you had any doubt that 3 portable turrets, a drone, and a dog couldn't get the job done, I invite you to watch that health bar melt. Good lord, I'm not even doing anything at this point. I'm just sitting behind these barrels, munching on a snack, while my team does all the work. And after the hunter desperately and ineffectively tries to escape, that's all she wrote. First boss cleared in 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
A strong start. Up next we have the Treant. My dog and my drone are more than capable of clearing the 3 routes we need to destroy before we can fight the actual boss, and once the Treant is no longer immune to damage, I throw down my turrets and watch the fireworks. The game gives you 2 minutes to deal damage to the boss before you have to destroy more routes, but we didn't even need it. That's the Treant dead in a single cycle. Moving right along. Credit where credit is due, Araxium is the first boss to actually do significant damage to my turrets, which do in fact have health. I just haven't bothered mentioning it up to this point because, you know, nothing ever really hurt them. But while she does force me to spawn a few more throughout the fight, the damage they're doing is not insignificant. And when she reaches her immunity phase, where she clings to the center stalagmite and waits for us to destroy her eggs, I can just sit back, relax, and think about life. Because while my turrets are too short range to actually shoot off the eggs around the outside of the arena, Araxium's immunity phase actually has a hidden timer. And if you just sit back and wait patiently, eventually she gets bored and starts attacking you again, opening her back up to turret fire. Simply rinse and repeat, and you've as good as won. Considering I was able to stay completely out of her aggro range for the entire battle, that's the easiest Araxium fight I've ever had. Which brings us to the Shadow Hound. This fight had me nervous for several reasons. The first is that it has a phase where the only weak points are on its shoulders. But whether it was on accident or because the turrets decided that they understood weak points all of a sudden, they actually blasted its shoulders more or less immediately. So that was a nice little gift to me. The second and more important reason I was worried was because of its slam attack, where it jumps into the air and then does an insta-kill attack a few seconds later. Unfortunately, the turrets didn't like this one, and didn't even try to bring it out of its charging animation. So I did go down twice throughout the fight. Luckily for me though, my squad was able to take down the Hound before it could do the attack a 3rd time, nabbing us the victory. Up north, in the snow scenario mission area, there's the Entropic Treant, but that thing went down even faster than the original version did. So, that's cool, I guess. Which brings us to the next northern sector boss, the Secret Servitor. The only tricky part of this boss is the fact that it constantly moves around the arena, which means you have to choose between replacing your turrets or just waiting for the boss to come back into range. Personally, I feel like the boss moves so much that it's not really worth moving your turrets, and the damage is so good you could probably space the turrets out evenly across the arena and be just fine. I'll be honest, this boss went down so fast that I don't even know what it does. If it has phases or attacks, I didn't see either of them. But that's another boss down. Which brings us to the final boss, the Forsaken Giant. I set up my drone, throw down my turrets, and then nothing. My turrets refuse to attack, and the giant refuses to fight me. Not to be deterred, I summoned my samurai, who somehow, against all odds, was able to trigger the fight. Judging by the big blue immune text I just saw at the bottom of the screen, it seemed like he warped to the boss's feet and attacked, doing a whopping 0 damage. But hey, at least the fight started. Is what I would say if my squadron would actually recognize that there's a boss in front of them, but nope, no reaction. They'll happily kill all the minions the boss spawns, so it's not like they're glitched out or anything like that either. I guess they've just decided that they're tired of fighting. And on that disappointing note, that's it. Turns out a Pacifist run just isn't doable, no matter how you cut it. What a bummer. I was hoping we'd get one final victory out of this game, but it looks like Once Human has finally stopped playing around and cut me off at the knees. Ah well, can't win them all. Guess I'll just have to settle for a mental victory instead. A big thank you again to Once Human for sponsoring today's video.
If you want to help avenge the Firebomb Academy, use my gift code, shown on screen here, and use my link in the description or pinned comment down below to download the game and play it for yourself. Maybe you'll be able to bully the Season 3 content in a way that I couldn't. Use a gun. That'll probably help. And if you're like me and want to play Once Human in a way that others would consider unorthodox, there's currently a 50% sale on custom servers, so get them while they're hot. But other than that, that's all I've got. Take care of yourselves, be good to one another, and I'll see you all again soon.